Well, thank you so much for joining me, the Honorable Stockwell Day. We are two sleeps past the last federal election. My goodness, what a night that was. Mr. Day, what are your current thoughts on the results?
Well, first, I tend to be an optimist, but keep in mind, Faytene, some people say that being a pessimist just means you have more information. So, uh, you know, I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic about the fact that the conservatives surged as high as they did in terms of number of seats. The largest increase in a conservative vote and with an conservative opposition leader since 1988. That part was very positive, but there was one party that surged just a little bit more, and that was the Liberals. So it's been a roller coaster, as you know, with for over a year. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives trending so high because of Justin Trudeau, and unfortunately, maybe Pierre Poilievre was too effective because Justin Trudeau just plummeted down, as you know. Then he bounces out. Then you have the combined effect of Trump talking about 51st state, and now the new guy, Carney. And it looked like actually Carney was going for, they were talking 200 seats at one point, as you probably were, even a week before the election. And the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre just hung in tight and they were able to recover. But it's not, I'm talking politically, and I love all people and all political parties and all that. From my perspective as a small C conservative, this is not a good season coming up.
Yeah, it was a wild night and so close. Like going into the night, our team estimated that we were looking at a 30 to 40 seat margin, most likely is probably coming down to 50,000 votes. That was our prediction. We did predict that it would be a minority outcome, but as we're crunching the numbers, and they are still fleshing out, folks need to know that it'll probably take a few more days before we have some solid numbers all across the nation. But one report saying that really the Liberals only took this, or was only about 600 votes, 611, I think was the exact count, away from grabbing a majority. So this was so close, so tight. Of course, you've got the NDP with 7 seats, even though that was an effective political collapse, but they still are that in that balance of power position. The Bloc being in the balance of power position. How do you see those dynamics fleshing out? Could Carney capitalize on that and push this the full 4 years? Or are we most likely going to the polls again here within a year or two with Carney trying to swipe at a true majority position? What's your gut on that?
Well, it's a great assessment you just did. Minority governments, traditionally, if we can use that word, talking about minority governments, you're looking at 18 months on average, a little over that. I do think that those 7 NDP seats will rush to the Liberals. Anytime the Liberals ask them, the NDP will have a price that they will exact for that. Who knows what that's going to be? It's going to be a challenge for the Liberals to be seen as collaborating with a separatist party, but that won't be beneath them. If they need those votes, they can drag a few votes out of there. So if they walk their tightrope carefully, they'll still be able to put through legislation that will be significant. So it's going to give some, it'll give some longevity if they want it. And that, to me, that's concerning. I should just add, we talk about how close some of these were. I think some of the work that you've been doing, Faytene, and some of your groups, the strategic work, focusing on different ridings, letting people know the possibilities, you can clearly say it was a factor. I mean, we all say, I wish we'd had more people come out, whatever, but you moved people, not just individually, but in certain strategic ridings that made a difference. And other ridings were very close. My one of my ridings in Kelowna, the Conservative there lost by 200 votes. And I think to myself, just and not that politics is not just the purview of people of faith. All people should be leaping into democracy. But just with people of faith alone who identify as going to church, 200 votes, any one church could have made up that difference. Um, so it shows how close this really was, just as you said, and you and your organization had an impact.
Yeah, well, thank you for that encouragement. And, we will never tell people how to vote, but we
No,
will be very forthright about where the parties stand
exactly.
various issues, and there were so many issues that were at stake in this election. Everything from the federal debt to, I heard you speaking a lot about the charitable status issue, the national unity issue. I want to go there just for a minute. Like, I was just waiting for Danielle Smith's post, whether it was the next morning. I didn't hold out that night. And I'm not exactly sure where she posted, but she congratulated Prime Minister Carney on his minority government. I noticed she was very quick to emphasize the
Mhm.
minority factor. Secondly, she went on to commend Pierre Poilievre for really putting some of the issues that Albertans care about on the radar nationwide and representing their heart, the desire to get the natural resources developed and to market and to get domestic trade going, all the things. And then she also went on to share that they are going to have a caucus meeting on Friday to talk about the future of Alberta. And I'm going to assume the sovereignty slash separation, the sovereignty kind of being soft separation, being the topic of conversation. We all knew this was one of the issues at stake in this election. She said it very rightly, excuse me, to Mark Carney that if he did not capitulate on some of these pro Alberta policies that are needed, he would have a national unity crisis on his hands. Where do you see this going?
She will raise that, and she has been very good on it. And I agree with you; her remarks were entirely appropriate, and she's been very forthright about saying and trying to warn the federal government that in her province, it is there is this dramatic rise, and it's concerning that from a Canadian point of view, that you would have so many people saying we're being mistreated, we're being abused, literally being abused, and we might want out of this relationship. That should be of a concern to a prime minister who cares. And we're going to find out just how much Prime Minister Carney cares in terms of how he's going to address this problem. Tying in with that, of course, energy policy, some very significant First Nations chiefs winning under the conservative banner being elected. That's going to bring a proper bit of a refocus. These are our First Nations chiefs who recognize that we're talking about prosperity for their own people and for Canada, and if done correctly, the lowering of emissions, possibly globally, if Alberta is able to ship its natural gas products to other countries. Right now, Quebec blocks that. And Mr. Carney's past suggests he might block that, but now's the time for him to think about opening it up and also pulling the country together.
Yeah, and he has written about that, how he would like to see 80% of our natural resources stay in the ground, right? This is
Yes, it's very
totally
concerning. Yeah.
opposed to everything that the Western premiers have been saying. Now, you said something there pretty intense, though, and I'm not sure. I think people in Alberta, people in Saskatchewan understand exactly what you're saying, but a lot of other Canadians don't. And that's the abuse factor. So when you say that Alberta has been abused, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, neglect is defined as abuse, certainly in social counseling sessions. Neglect is abuse. It's a form of abuse. And that's clearly been a part of it. Central Canadian policies which allow certain things to happen in Ontario, Quebec, and not in Alberta. That is neglect. That's ignoring a problem that is very real. And then, in terms of fiscal abuse, which is also clarified if you take it into a counseling context, financial depriving a partner of a financial resource, that is genuine abuse. Causing a partner to suffer in a material way because of financial abuse, that's a real thing, and that's what's been happening in Alberta. And I really hope that Prime Minister Carney sees it through that lens, that Albertans don't just feel ignored, but they feel abused on these particular areas, and it's getting very serious. And a lot of us think divorce is not the answer here in Canada, but can and I think there's a way to avoid it, but it has to be looked at seriously. Otherwise, you've got a pretty lopsided relationship, which does not work. All counselors tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thank you for unpacking that a little bit. And obviously, Albertans thinking about those transfer payments that go out every single year. And I'm not laughing like because this is a trite thing.
No, no, I know.
It's ridiculous, how much is transferred out of the province while at the same time the province being so buffeted in terms of its ability to prosper. So it's like pay up and be quiet. And I think a lot of Albertans, at least this is what I've been hearing, and those from Saskatchewan, we're just watching for what would happen Monday nights, just watching. And I heard people saying, if this goes a certain direction, we're moving to Alberta. That I heard other people saying, if this goes a certain direction, we're moving to Florida or we're moving to Costa Rica. Like a lot of people
Mhm.
were really watching this. And so, what happens now with the Western premiers? What happens in that caucus meeting on Friday? There are a lot of people that really have their ear to the ground on this one. I know that there was some buzz on the radio just this morning with premier or with different individuals musing that if Alberta and Saskatchewan band together and move towards sovereignty as Quebec did in 2006, that there's a chance that BC and Manitoba might say, "Hey, we want to talk to you guys too about this." And could there be a banding together of four provinces here? I know this is all conjecture right now and speculation, but do you have any thoughts on that frontier?
Yes, they say that's been said that politics is the art of the possible. And I put in another word there just as a caveat a bit. Uh, Politics is it's only the art of the possible. But if people speak up, which is what politics is about, even a previous politically taken position can shift. And you look at Premier Eby in BC, who for years has been running drug and addiction policy that, in the view of many of us, only makes the problem worse, only leads to more addiction and more crime on the streets. And because of people speaking up on this enough over a period of years, he has shifted their policy. Now, some people have cynically said he's only done that because he wants to stay elected, and more people are realizing that it's insane to be giving highly addictive drugs freely to people and also to not dealing at all with the crime that comes with that. And so he has actually shifted. He has shifted towards a conservative policy on that. So apply that paradigm to a sovereignty association type of thing. If there's enough people who speak up and say, uh, we love Quebec, but what Quebec gets, we as a province should be able to have that too. That sentiment is continuing to rise, continuing to be echoed on the streets, even in British Columbia. And so that's where I see, even if a strongly socialist prime minister or premier, like Premier Eby of the NDP, if he hears those voices loud enough, he will start to look differently. And possibilities on this one being the art of the possible, there's going to be an increased look by premiers who haven't really think they have to take it seriously. They're going to be taking they're going to be listening more to more and more of their people who are saying, we want a different type of association here. Maybe
Well,
not separate, but a different type of association.
I so appreciate your insights on this. And I think you nailed it when you said that it's reasonable for the premiers to say, hey, if Quebec's getting this, we should get it too, right?
Right.
And
If they
that is a
want it. Yeah.
reasonable and
Right.
sellable position, I think, to the electorate.
Yeah.
Uh, we'll see where this all goes. I'll be sitting here waiting for any sort of a press release on Friday afternoon or Saturday. We'll see where it goes. Now, one of the other things, Mr. De Stockwell, I that you flagged and others flagged as well. Many members of Parliament were speaking about it, posting about it in the lead up. Was this whole idea of the sleeper issue surrounding the revocation of charitable status for faith-based organizations? Like here at For My Canada, it's really a non-issue because we're a nonprofit already. We already don't give tax receipts. And so our political engagement, we can have an opinion, we can we can take a position, though again, our view is that we're here to inform and empower and equip people. But breaking news here just yesterday, Sheila Gunn from from Rebel News, bombshell uncover. I guess a few people have been trying to whistleblow on this, that there's an organization that has received significant funding, it looks like almost $1 million from the Liberals over the last several years. And they are putting together this database of churches and faith-based organizations, I'm presuming maybe mosques and synagogues as well, that are not inclusive to the LGBTQ2 plus community. And, the question is like, what is this database about? Is there going to be a forensic targeting of these organizations for the removal of charitable status, that if you don't line up with government ideology around sexual orientation issues, that these churches are going to be required to teach what the government says rather than what their holy books say? How does this interface with charter rights? Why almost $1 million in funding to create a database? Now, all of this is being uncovered. So I know even you and I both here are, excavating here what exactly is happening. But your thoughts now that we have a Liberal government in a strong position in the House of Commons, easily propped up by either the Bloc or the NDP, what should the faith community be thinking about?
Well, they shouldn't, for one thing, be saying this is just some kind of scare tactic by people, who are center or center right in politics. This is very real. Justin Trudeau tried it, and you reported on the time a couple of years ago on some of the programs of granting, for instance, programs that where different groups and agencies, churches, and otherwise could hire summer students for various works. And you recall, he tried, he almost got away with it, saying if you support, your organization, for instance, supports pregnancy care centers, then you're not going to get any of this money.
If
So
you're
that's,
pro-life, if you're
yeah,
pro-life, you can't get money to hire
exactly.
this summer. Yeah.
So he was trying to apply a certain position um, to an organization as a litmus test whether they get taxpayer money or not. He tried it, and because of organizations like yours and other raising the issue and raising awareness, they backed off somewhat. So it's already been tried, and I really do think if the Liberals had won a clear majority on Monday night, these type of things would be advancing more quickly. There is no question that within the Liberal Party, I'm not saying all liberals, there's a high degree of animus towards faith-based groups and groups that would say, for instance, as I mean, I've said it openly, others have, adults have the right when it comes to the question of gender to do what they would with their bodies surgically or pharmaceutically or chemically, but children should be protected from that. That's something that we've always said. That is more and more coming to be defined as a hateful position when you say you want to keep your children from that and parents have to be consulted. We know the movement is very strong to paint parental concerns as hate based, which are not true. The people that I know and see every day who raise that as a concern to protect their children, they're acknowledging the right of adults to make adult choices. We might debate whether we think they're healthy or not, but when it comes to protecting kids, but that is more and more positions that are outside of the mainstream media narrative and really the liberal narrative are going to be increasingly defined as hateful. And that's very dangerous territory and needs to be pushed back and exposed.
And couple that with Prime Minister Carney's policy, just a few days before everybody went and voted, saying that he will be clamping down on what you can see and say online. He will not be repealing the censorship laws that Justin Trudeau brought forward, and he'll be adding to them. He will be beefing them up to clamp down on what he called misinformation. And again, these things always seem to start out ambiguous in terms of what exactly is misinformation, who decides what is misinformation, and how does this intersect with the charter rights of Canadians, such as freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, all those very, very important tenets. By the way, I will point out these are some of the tenets that have attracted people from all over the nations of the earth to come to immigrate, to call Canada home because
Right.
freedom is so precious and treasured. So we'll see if we can keep having these conversations here at Stockwell on the road ahead.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and you've hit an important point there because the people who come here from other places, I can tell you when I talk to people in the Sikh community, for instance, and many in the Muslim community, they literally, most of them, not all, they go into shock when they hear about enforced gender policy, what could happen in shower rooms, what happens in women's sports. So new Canadians come here because they think their rights will be respected, and when they hear these type of policies, they're literally, matter of fact, some of them can't even believe it, and when they see it, they start to believe it. So new Canadians are probably the most highly sensitive to not being able to protect their own children and their own religious beliefs.
well, it's a very important conversation. Given the trajectory of the former Liberal administration and several of the things that Mr. Carney himself has already alluded to. So
Mm.
keep our eye on this one. Last question. I know this one's top of mind for a lot of folks, and that's the future for Pierre Poilievre, right? Losing
Mm.
his own riding. Obviously, there was a reconfiguration of boundaries. There was a red sweep in Ottawa that probably contributed 91 names on his ballots. There are so many theories spinning out there right now on X. But people just asking the question, what happens with Pierre? Is somebody going to give him their seat in another riding? Conservative stronghold? Does he step down? I would assume that these are going to be conversations had internally and privately at the caucus level. But your thoughts on this one?
Well, a couple of things because we readily know if a group had organized 90 people, and it costs $1,000 a person to register as an independent, if a group had ordered 90 people to register on a ballot that Mark Carney's name was on. I can tell you, mainstream media would be all over that. They would hire the best investigators anywhere to say, how did this get organized? It wouldn't be just dismissed as, oh, it's a group who's thinking about, proportional representation. This was highly organized to get that number of people to enter a confusing element onto a ballot. Now, we're not questioning voter results, anything like that. The results are what they are. But the total lack of curiosity, and mainstream media usually applauds curiosity, their lack of curiosity on how this was organized, who paid the $1,000 each to 90 people, is really staggering. Would it have made a difference? Would have made some. I'm not arguing about the results. It's the lack of curiosity on the part of the media. Will Pierre Poilievre, what will he do? I can't speak for him. I can tell you it's a difficult time. Um, I know what it's like when I was leader of the Canadian Alliance and we went into a snap election call. We increased the number of seats. We had record levels of fundraising. We had record number of rallies. But when, as a leader among conservatives anyway, if you don't win the election, there's not a lot of patience for you. Conservatives are much more individualistically minded. We don't think collectively. We don't pull together well when somebody doesn't quite hit the high water mark we wanted. So, look, I'm going to be honest. He's in a bit of a tenuous situation. He has huge support in the membership, and he's got huge support in caucus. But there will always be those who will be talking and looking for their own moment. So he's got a tough decision to make. He and Anna, they've given their lives literally for the country, going back and forth as they had a number of years. I can't predict what's going to happen there. It's going to be a challenge. It'll be a challenge he can meet if he decides to step up, move into another constituency. I do believe he'll meet that challenge. And under severe, severe media, I'm not just crying about media here. Any thinking person will say he's just under severe mutiny pounding for at least the last year. And in spite of that, look at the huge increase that he got, including in the GTA in Toronto. So he can do it. He is able to do it. How that may manifest, I can't say.
Well, one thing we know for sure, it's going to continue to be an interesting landscape in Canadian politics. Who would have known, right, Stockwell?
It's not boring. Nobody try and
It's
say it's as exciting as a hockey game, and the gloves can and do
Well,
come
I don't know
off.
about a hockey game. Come on, you gotta. But yeah, it's definitely not boring. So, well,
Right.
thank you so much for your investment of time today. I know our viewers, those who track with us, deeply respect you and appreciate your comments today. Any final words?
Thanks for the great work you do informing people. And I think it's an important point. I think what you do should be a paradigm for churches to show that you can talk about contentious issues, pastors can, without being accused of telling their people, vote conservative, vote liberal. Talk about the issues, get them to think about them, get them to pray about them, and then vote accordingly. And I think you set an example for churches to follow. That can actually be done. And let's hope more and more follow that pattern.
Well, there will certainly be more opportunities for people of
Mhm.
faith to engage, and we are happy to equip and give them those on ramps. Thank you so much,
All
Stockwell,
right.
Pastor Day, the Honorable Stockwell Day.
Great to be with you.
It's always an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.